Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. Today we are going to be going over Pokemon usage, talking about the top usage mons and kind of going through every Pokemon that I think is relevant, kind of helping you guys contextualize usage within the format right now and kind of understanding how, I guess pretty much where everything falls in the metagame. Some certain stats can be a little deceiving sometimes, so I wanted to take time to actually work with you guys and kind of give you guys a little more context on it. So we're going to be going through the usage of tournaments and also usage stats from the most recent Victory Road Tour, along with Pikalytics, who are also keeping track of the Showdown Ladder, and kind of working with you guys to kind of explain all those different choices. So let me close out my channel dashboard here. If you guys haven't already, make sure to check out the Patreon down below if you guys would like to support me beyond the YouTube videos, and make sure to check out the Twitch where I do stream both Battle Tower, VGC, and other challenges that are fun on Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. But yeah, so pretty much when it comes to Pokemon in the format, you'll see that Scizor actually was the #1 placed Pokemon out of everything on the team. Some other notable things that I had noticed as well, which I was a little bit surprised about, was actually seeing Cresselia so high in usage. That might sound weird, but the reason why I think it's so weird is because I don't actually think it's that phenomenal of a choice, and I think it's a little bit limited almost in a regard. Also, continually looking through the options, I think something to note is that Heatran actually is a lot more relevant than it necessarily would have thought to have been. It's actually really good, and I think that it kind of showed it how good it was through its usage, even though few people used it. Another thing as well, Hitmontop and Raikou were big shining stars of this tournament, and Garchomp, even though I thought it wasn't particularly that amazing, actually had a decent amount of usage in this tournament. So some stuff to keep in mind. So I'm going to be going through them one by one and kind of telling you the big threats and then the ones that I think are probably going to fall off as we kind of progress through the metagame more. So first off, to talk about the threats of threats, right? So right now, I think Scizor is going to stay on top. I think Scizor is the best Steel type in the format. It is really impressive. I played versus Scizor a lot of times during the tournament. I thought it was incredibly good, incredibly strong, and it was very disruptive to deal with. So I can see it consistently being good. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be consistent. I mean, if you look here, Scizor, I had a different Steel type. Scizor, 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 Scizor. Scizor, 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 Scizor. Scizor, 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 Scizor. And you'll see that, the teams that didn't have it, besides, one or two, literally had a Heatran instead. So, it's just good. It's 100% going to stay a threat. It's a really good mon. It pretty much belongs on every team if you're not using a Heatran. So I would definitely see it continuing to be consistent and being used. Having an answer for Scizor is very mandatory. It's something I would consider very important. Now, looking at usage as well, you'll see Arcanine and Tyranitar making up #2 and #3. If we look at the most common teams, you'll see it's pretty much a variant between Hitmontop or Arcanine. It's basically one of the two options for each team, Gyarados being the Fringe Intimidator that was on one of the teams. But pretty much majority of the time, Arcanine is really the choice for people when it comes to Pokemon they want to use. So in my opinion, I think that Arcanine is a little bit more consistent with the Gastrodon, Latios, Raikou, that kind of composition. And then when we come to the other kind of compositions, typically Hitmontop's a little bit better. So it obviously depends on every team and kind of what everyone's using. But personally, I think that out of both Intimidators, Arcanine's a little more splashable on the Gastrodon compositions, and then Hitmontop works on both, actually. I think Hitmontop has a lot of potential as an Intimidator. I could see it even being better than Arcanine in some regards. So I'm going to put both Hitmontop and Arcanine here, but I think it's worth noting that they're both very strong and that Arcanine actually has a lot of potential as an Intimidator as well. Going into the list as well, if we look here, Togekiss did appear on a few teams. I do think Togekiss is good. However, I don't think it's actually as strong as everyone is making it out to be. I put it on S tier on the tier list. I might even move it down to A+ if I were to do it again. It's still good, but I think the one thing that it struggles with a lot is Scizor. Scizor is so difficult for Togekiss to deal with, and it's on every team. Literally every team has it. And if it's not Scizor, it's Raikou, because fast electric types are always strong, and look at Raikou usage. Even electric type usage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 teams out of a 21 cut that had the Raikou. And not even just that, they had Tyranitar and Scizor as well on them. And like, that's so oppressive for Togekiss. So I definitely see Togekiss falling off a little bit. I'm actually going to make a separate category, which is going to be not as good as we thought. We thought usage might deceive you, right? Now, what I wanted to talk about was specifically in this category, Togekiss and Cresselia. I think Togekiss is the best redirection option in the format at the moment. However, it still struggles with a lot of the things that I just mentioned, right? And I think Cresselia also struggles a lot in the metagame because Tyranitar and Scizor are on a lot of teams. Like, if you look at this, like, these two were on, like, a decent chunk of teams, but it was just so rough. Like, I feel like Cresselia is so hard to bring into a lot of these teams, right? And, like, even the teams that had it, I feel like Cresselia was almost a slot that hurt it a little bit more than it helped it. Like, Cresselia is good, and it's good on certain teams, but I really think that as we continue to see the format progress, that Cresselia is really not going to be on too many teams at all. And I think that teams are going to favor having different Pokemon on the teams. Like, I don't know, as I watch, like, the tournament progress, like, I kind of notice how weak Cresselia is. Like, even into a team like, you know, even into a team like, let's say the winners team, right? Like, James' team, like, Tyranitar, Scizor, then you have, like, sure, you can hit, like, these three, right? But even Gastrodon is, like, kind of questionable. Like, Yawn can come out there, it can intimidate you. You're going to get chunked by Rotom. You can Volt Switch. I mean, Scizor is super pressuring you. Raikou can just Snarl spam you, set up screens. Like, Cresselia is just too passive on a lot of these teams, and I don't think it's good. Specifically, the Calm Mind set I don't think is great. I think the Trick Room set is still fine. But yeah, I think it's pretty rough for Cresselia right now, and I could see it definitely not being as strong as we thought it was. Now, going into the remainder of usage, I think Heatran is a big threat in the format right now. I know we didn't see too much of it, but along with the team I placed high with, I just think, like, Heatran's really strong, and I think that it's going to see more usage as the format continues to progress. Heatran's basically a full-on check to Scizor. It matches up very decently into Tyranitar, who's super meta. It beats Togekiss, and it can also beat Arcanine, assuming that it's a 1v1, because then you use Earth Power it. Has Earth Power for Raikou. Latios can't touch it. Chomp obviously can hit it. Kind of matches up neutrally into this, and then as you continue, you know, it's kind of like whatever. But Heatran is super good, and I see Heatran being consistently good as we continue to go through this format. Now, another thing that I think is a threat that's very good is Raikou. Fast electric type with Thunderbolt, screens, and inner focus is actually insane. We saw it through usage being reflected. Like, it fit on so many teams, right? And I think that it's kind of evident through that it's a very good option and that we're going to see a lot of it. And I think that you can really see the strength of it as we will continue with the format. Another thing that I wanted to point out as well that's also a threat in my opinion is both Zapdos and Rotom Heat. Specifically more so Zapdos. I think James' team was just perfectly built to suit Rotom Heat, but I think it's less splashable. I think that Zapdos is actually a really good option. If you look at usage, right, obviously I used it, Kakunaka used it, and then as we continue we didn't see too many other Zapdos. However, considering the two Zapdos were very high placed, and the teams and Zapdos did really well into a lot of the field, and it's a Scizor wall, I think it's a really good option as we continue into this format, and something we're going to see pop up a lot more. And I could definitely see it being really consistent. So these are the Pokemon I would keep an eye out for right now in the format that I think are super good. I think that Mamoswine and Gyarados as well have underexplored potential. I'm not so sure about Mence. I feel like Mence is a little bit eh. Gardevoir is another thing worth discussing. Gardevoir is pretty much a very fast Moonblast Mon that can snipe Latios. It also has decent coverage to even remove stuff like Gastrodon with Energy Ball, so I could definitely see that being consistent. It has the same weakness as Togekiss of being weak to Scizor. However, it does actually match up well into opposing Tyranitar because you can spam Moonblast into it. You don't have the problem with getting Ice Beam by Latios because you can just Moonblast it first. Even in the stuff like Garchomp, you don't risk flinches because you can Moonblast. And it's pretty much like a wider move pool of coverage. So it's actually really nice in relation to it, in my opinion. And I would definitely see it being something that is pretty pretty cool in the end. And I would be excited to see a little bit more, or I'm excited to see a little bit more from it as the format continues to progress. Now, going into the lower fringe usage mons, I'm going to talk about the ones that I don't think were that great. I think Wolf's Azumarill was actually really good. I think it has the potential to be a really good mon. I just think it needs the right support around it. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for and could potentially be really good on certain teams. Weavile, not too sure about. Weavile does pin a lot of threats in the format, specifically with low kick on Tyranitar, ice move on Togekiss, dark move on Cresselia, and then you have ice moves for both Latios and Garchomp. However, it is weak to Scizor. It doesn't really break through Heatran too often. Gastrodon walls it. It can get Intimidate spammed. It doesn't really match up well into Rotom Wash. That being said, I don't think Rotom Wash is the most phenomenal thing anymore. And it still has certain things it struggles with, right? But it is an option, and it's something worth considering. Now, basically, when it comes to the, like, other mons there, Snorlax, I think, is a little bit weaker to pretty much just being spammed with moves. So Marcus had used it. I'd actually ended up playing versus Marcus, and it had Stockpile Belly Drum. I think Curse might have served it a little bit better, or even just being choice banned. I actually talked to James about this. James Evans, the person who won the tournament, because he had also played versus Marcus's team, and like we were discussing it or whatever, because it was a cool team. And I think that choice band or like some other offensive option might have helped it a little bit more, so it could have done more. Snorlax is kind of a weird mon. It's the only really good normal type in my opinion, but it's also kind of struggles in a regard, so kind of interested to see where it goes from here. Gengar is something I thought we would have seen more. Wow, that was a bad voice crack. Jesus Christ. Gengar is something I think we could see more of, but I would probably expect it to stay relatively kind of middle of the usage because it does have really nice coverage. The only problem is it's frail, so it doesn't fit on too many teams. But we'll have to see as it goes. I think if it had Icy Wind, it'd be a lot better because of dynamic speed, but we'll have to see. Because right now with Scizor and Tyranitar being like number 1 and 3 in usage, it's kind of rough for it, but you'll see that it also does a really good job into like Latios. It does a good job into any of the grass types. It does a good job into Togekiss, you know, Cresselia. So it does have a niche there, right? And it can definitely do something, but it's kind of a weird position for it. But yeah, that's pretty much like the main thoughts on like the usage here. And like if we look at usage of Pikalytics in general, because this is also something I wanted to touch about. Pretty much the main things that I would keep in mind as threats that I think are super relevant are going to be Arcanine, Scizor, Tyranitar. Rotom Wash is kind of in the middle. I think Gastrodon should be a lot higher than it is. Rain is really good. Heatran's really good. I think Breloom's a little overrated. Same with Hariyama. And as we progress, I think we'll see like Azumarill, Hitmontop shoot up in usage a little bit more. I think Metagross is kind of weak, and it's kind of been evident throughout the tournament's results. I mean, we'll see if it's still relevant, but I think that it's going to struggle a lot with the Scizor being everywhere, and with kind of things that pressure it being everywhere. I think in terms of anything else that I really wanted to point out, I think Kingdra is going to drop a lot in usage. I think that Ludicolo is just a superior rain user, and I don't think that Kingdra offers too much in comparison to it. I think Smeargle is something that we could see pop up on a team that I think would be really good. Now, for my sleeper picks that I think that should have been reflected in usage that aren't there, as we continue to scroll down, I really wanted to highlight a couple of Pokemon. Pachirisu is kind of cute. I don't know if it's particularly good. I'm keeping an eye out for Rhyperior. I also want to keep an eye out for Lucario and Kangaskhan. I think they're actually a couple of decent options that I could see being relevant, right? Slowbro is something I'm looking into only because there is a hard Trick Room team going around with Gastrodon where you surf spam into it. And also, as we continue to go down, there was one other Pokemon I wanted to touch on. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Sableye, also really good, actually. I did want to do that as well. I think Sableye is actually really crazy right now because you have, like, Foul Play, Quash, Will-O-Wisp, like a bunch of options that are like really disruptive to the opponent. I'm trying to see, not Vileplume, Jumpluff, that's what I was thinking of. Jumpluff pretty much is really fast Sleep Powder and Rage Powder in the format. I think it's really underlooked as a kind of redirector right now, and it has a lot of potential in the format. So those are some things I would keep an eye out for, and pretty much looking at usage, those are my thoughts on the current usage that we've seen so far. I will be covering more usage as we kind of get more information and we kind of see more of the format progress, but hopefully this video was helpful to you guys and helped you guys contextualize what I think was a little bit more threatening, which was like Scizor, Arcanine, Heatran, Zapdos, Hitmontop, and then kind of what was a little bit not as good as we thought, which specifically was Togekiss, Cresselia, Even out of the list, I mean, we had discussed potentially Snorlax. I think that Garchomp is not as good as we thought personally, but yeah, those are pretty much the main Pokemon that I think are pretty relevant. I'm actually gonna put Garchomp in here because I feel like even though Wolf plays high with it, Wolf is a good player, and it's not always about the team. It's sometimes about the player. And he's really, really good. So I'm not surprised he plays high anyways. And if you look at usage besides Garchomp getting top 4 with Kakunaka and like top 8 with Wolf, it didn't really have too much appearances. Like it had like 1, 2, 3 more appearances, and like they weren't particularly the most amazing slots on certain teams in my opinion. But yeah, I would definitely see Chomp either like dropping a little bit more in usage or kind of staying where it is. On terms of ladder, people might still be using it a lot because, you know, Garchomp and everyone loves Garchomp, but I think it might drop in usage a little bit as we kind of see the format progress. But yeah, so pretty much that's it for the video. I just wanted to kind of go over the usage and kind of give you guys a little more context on the teams and everything. So hopefully this helps you guys out. If you guys have, honestly, any questions below, I try to do my best to answer any comments. And definitely keep an eye out for this. I mean, these Pokemon are also going to be really good for Battle Tower as well because you have a lot of options here that you can use into it, right? Because you get the option of, like, for example, you can use Scizor in Battle Tower because it's a strong Steel type. There are very little Pokemon in Battle Tower that, like, you know, can deal with Steel types. And pretty much using Heatran or Scizor is, like, really good into it. Arcanine, you always want, like, an Intimidator or something to kind of slow down the opposing team if you can. Raikou's really good at early screen, so if you ever play, like, Fake Out or anything on there, you can deal with that. Zapdos is a really good damage dealer, and on Battle Tower, you have the benefit of being able to solo down a slot faster and isolating a slot, so it's really nice. And then if we look at the weaker things, I think this kind of applies to Battle Tower as well, actually. The only difference is that these work a bit better into it because not everyone has a Scizor, right? So I don't think this is as so applicable to Battle Tower as the other stuff is, because you'll see that the team I actually made a video about before had all these 3 Pokemon on it. And I think that Battle Tower is very different than VGC in the regard of, like, what's not so good, because certain Pokemon, like, basically in Battle Tower, you're not going to play all the same team, right? There's a variety of teams, whereas in VGC, there's kind of like a meta, so it kind of establishes itself. But yeah, these are generally consistent Pokemon until, like, not the current metagame for VGC. But yeah, pretty much that's it. I mean, if you guys have any other questions, make sure to let me know. And yeah, I mean, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully, we'll get to even look at usage in the future too. I would love to keep looking at this format in the future and kind of see how it develops. But once again, guys, thank you for all the support. I'll see you guys in the next video, and let me know what you guys would like to see out of me next. Peace.